I've been in kind of a complaining mode half of the time and half the time in a positive mode. But most of the time I'm complaining about that we have a ton of stuff to do. Um, Hard been a hard time getting all the materials we need, having a hard time finding all the people that we need to help to work on the floor, talking about how hard hiring is and the turnover. And I realized recently that I was kind of miscategorized the busyness, and I was thinking that it was just because we were so short staffed, and once we got more people hired, it would take care of it. But the whole as COVID happened, and we never really slowed down, and then the country kind of opened back up, and it's been probably a year now since we everybody has kind of been out and about again. Uh, then we just started getting busier and busier for whatever reason, and we have added people along the way, but the workload and how busy we are has kind of stayed the same. And it kind of matched the people that we were bringing on. So it just kind of felt like that we were just staying in this one spot and that we were just still really busy and that it, was still challenging to get everything done. But I wasn't, I was just so focused on kind of like the micro and the day to day that I wasn't taking a step back and realizing like, wow, we're significantly doing a lot more work. And I think it's because we didn't acquire a lot more customers. It's just our current customers' workload went up so much, and we've just been focused on keeping going and getting all their work done. And then recently, I realized that it's kind of been a pretty big mistake of mine over the past year or so because we have been doing a lot more stuff. We have been bringing more people on, and then it's to the point where like we're pretty much utilizing our um, equipment to full capacity, essentially. And so, in order to do more work, we're so cramped and we're kind of out of space, and we've got so much stuff and so many parts and so many large parts because that's kind of what we specialize in that it's hard to kind of all make that move through the shop and process it while still having space to kind of store parts before we're working on them and store them after. That's never really happened to me before because early on, my dad, Jay, has always been kind of the driving force behind expansion. And he kind of always is thinking ahead and expanding before we need it. For example, like he started as just as a painting company, and then he decided that he wanted to start doing some blasting. And then after he did that for a while, he just decided that he wanted to start powder coating. And then we got into the powder coating, and I kind of got involved. And then he was already kind of thinking about, well, we're going to need more space once um, we'd had a pretty small area where we were powder coating. And so he was thinking about how are we going to be able to take over more square footage in this building. And then we got that far, and he was kind of thinking ahead about like, well, we've taken over the whole building. What happens when we need to put in another piece of equipment? So he's thinking about adding more square footage, and that's when we put on the addition a few years ago. Slowly but surely, I've been taking over more and more of just all the decision making for the powder coating portion. And then COVID kind of hit, and we were just everything was unsure, and we definitely were kind of in the mode of, you know, I think everybody was of like, let's not overextend ourselves right now. Let's try to make sure that we have plenty of work to keep everybody busy. And then the busyness came back, and we got slammed and just got so drugged down in that. In the past, we've always kind of had like that next little space of where, a new project comes up and someone's like, "Are you capable of taking this on?" And I've always just said, "Yes, no problem. We can take it on," because we just had availability. And now I'm kind of getting to the point where I kind of have to think twice and like, maybe we don't have enough space, or maybe we don't have quite the personnel. And because now that we have such a big customer base already that we know that we have to take care of, got to be a little bit careful about adding a new customer and promising a lot of stuff because all of a sudden we might not be able to deliver. And I haven't run into that before. And it boils down to just like that's just my fault. Um, so I've been kind of dealing with being really frustrated with myself recently because now when you get to a point where you realize like we're still really busy, We want to take on even more work. We don't want to turn anybody away. That means we probably have to grow the team, which we've always been trying to do and we've been talking about a lot. But then we have to grow the facility also, or there's got to be space, or we have to do more than just one shift. We got to, we have to have more throughput through the same piece of equipment. So that would be like day shift and night shift, but that becomes really challenging. And the problem is when you kind of run up to the point of where you're like, oh crap, we're kind of at like 100% capacity, literally, then you have to start deciding or telling people like, no, actually, we can't do that project. And no, we can't do that. You're going busy, busy, busy. And then you kind of start not, quoting things or turning stuff down. And then it might start to taper off because maybe one of your customers that you currently have slows down a little. And so, um, we're still super busy right now, but I know that like I took it all the way to this point to where it's kind of like, oh crap, we're not able to say yes to everybody anymore for the time being. Got to figure out how we can um, come up with some sort of way to do more, whether that's more shifts or more equipment or more building space, and obviously more people. But then we're probably going to have a little bit of lag in work, right? Just because if you are turning work away, then naturally you probably will end up with a void at some point as like, you're like, okay, we're going to grow now, but I've been turning a ton of stuff down. So like now we don't have any new work to put in new spaces. Obviously, it was a complete oversight on my part, and I was way too focused on like just the day to day and trying to get stuff done and grinding it out, and came up and bit me in the ass. I think it might be a common thing as people grow. If you got to the point where you're near full capacity, which we have a couple of times, it wasn't as difficult to expand or get more equipment because like stuff was a little more readily available. Now it's like even if you want to get a piece of equipment and you think you have space for it and you have the work to do in it, sometimes now like you get a quote on a piece of equipment and it's like, yeah, we won't have that available for like I've had what are some of the quotes like 58 weeks. Now, that's over a year. I don't even know if I'm gonna need it then. I don't really feel comfortable ordering something that I might not have for over a year. I know that it's not gonna be instant, but I was hoping that I could solve my problem a little bit sooner than a year from now. So that adds another thing to the fold and like even makes it seem even worse that I wasn't on the pace of constantly thinking ahead, like my dad always has been. And it's like he's done it progressively over time, but I didn't realize it until now that at least up until this point, working in the blasting and coatings, we've always just, for whatever reason, we've just had that space available. We never were operating at 100% capacity, I guess is what I should say. And we might not be 100% capacity every week right now, but it bumps up against it. And so that's something new. And now I learned my lesson that we need to make sure that we don't ever run up to 100% capacity. It seems good from a standpoint like, oh wow, like we have plenty of work to do. But what ends up happening is that like you get put in a position where you might have to say no to one of your customers that you really want to take care of. Like not to say that you're going to say no, I don't want to do your work anymore, but you may not be able to come through on a quick turnaround for them that week because there's just nothing available to like where you can sneak it in, and that sucks. Obviously that's disappointing for a customer. So sayings like if you're not growing, you're dying, and like if you're resting, then someone else is getting better and gonna put you out of business. So, and that's like a very competitive way to look at things, but it was true this time around. You'd like to think that you provide a really good service and that people are going to wait, and they will to a point, but they need it done and they have their own customers. Like they're just going to find another avenue to get it accomplished. Just like if I need a powder or I need a chemical or I need a part and I call and it's not available, I'm just like, okay, well, I'm going to try to find another option. Like I'm not going to just take that as an answer. I exhaust a lot of others suppliers to see like, is there another option? And usually you can find one
Mhm.
because that's the nature of the market is that multiple people do similar things. There's competition.
So if you go back to 2020, that's what you would tell yourself. What if you went back further, like 2015 Jase? What do you wish that he had known? Or what do you think he was, like, expecting to happen that hasn't happened? Or what do you think he would be surprised to learn about what you've done?
I think if 2015 Jace was looking at what has happened to this point, just in terms of our growth and where we're at and what equipment we do have and the number of people we have, he'd be excited and be like, that's what my goal is right now. So
Great.
that's great to look at and see that, in 2022 that the parking lot's going to be so full that you don't have any space. It is everything that I envisioned it to be. And I think that is part of the problem because I haven't been like resetting my goals.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, okay, we're here and we accomplished it. Now what? It's like, I guess I should have been resetting the goal kind of halfway along. So we didn't hit this like plateau, so to speak, for a little while, right? Because we've kind of always been on this climb, 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 climb. Then all of a sudden we kind of like hit this deck of this is all we're capable of getting done right now. And then our lead time just jumps way out, which we've had happen before, but I wanted it to be that way around COVID. Like that was good. My goal was to get to an 8-week lead time. I wanted it to be there. But
Mm,
now when you don't have this impending doom,
right.
it's like, wait a minute, we don't want our lead time to be there. We want it to be somewhere normal. And then it's like, oh crap, we got a lot of work to do to get it back down to a normal lead time.
So sitting here right now, you look ahead to 2030, what do you hope is happening in 2030?
So that's gonna be about 8 years from now.
Yeah.
I want our team to be bigger, like scaled in a sense of like we have all the capabilities that we have now, but we just have more people that have those capabilities because that would be extremely helpful. And then in order to um, have that, we're probably gonna have to have more space and more pieces of equipment because you can't just like double the amount of people and then expect double the work to get done if we're utilizing our equipment to pretty much full capacity right now. What we've built in the last whatever 6 or 7 years, let's I guess try to duplicate that again
Yeah.
and duplicate it without me having to um, take my 14-hour day to a 28-hour day.
Gonna
So
be
that'll be a fun challenge. But